All right. Good afternoon. My name is Jay Underwood, and this is my video presentation for natural resource management topic of interest, of which I chose water scarcity. So this piqued my interest because water is a precious resource, and without it, life would cease to exist. So let's protect it. So water scarcity is a global issue. So pulling out some facts here, over 2 billion people. So we have an estimated 8.2 billion people in total. So 24% of our entire population lack regular access to safe drinking water, and half the world's population faces water scarcity for at least part of the year. So water scarcity is categorized into physical scarcity, which is not enough water to meet demand, and economic scarcity, which is where water exists, but infrastructure is lacking the ability to access it. In the US, one of the issues is that we are depleting our groundwater supply. We're drying it up because we are using it faster than it is able to replenish itself. So somewhat of a physical scarcity versus a economic scarcity, but nonetheless an issue that we are having, and one that needs to be addressed. So what are some of the drivers of water scarcity? Well, interesting enough, glaciers have lost ice for the last 3 years. So 22, 23, and 24 have all been reported of glaciers losing ice, melting down. So this is obviously impacting freshwater availability, because the melting of glacier ice has a significant impact on freshwater availability. Glaciers are natural reservoirs that store approximately, get this, 70% of the Earth's fresh water. So as they melt, they feed rivers and lakes, and obviously as these glaciers are prematurely melting away, that supply year over year is becoming more and more depleted. This is particularly detrimental to areas where these rivers are primarily fed from glacier runoff. That supports the area and all the life and wildlife and plant life that exist in that area, which is killing the environment there. And additionally, this increase in ice loss obviously stars those areas, but it also impacts coastal cities, because as it runs off and goes into the sea, it causes sea levels to rise, which is putting coastal cities at more risk of going under sea level, which can lead to flooding and other serious issues there. So that's one major issue. And the second major issue is population. So population growth is a pretty hot topic across the world. As mentioned earlier, we are roughly 8.2 billion people, and it's estimated that by 2050, which is only 25 years away, that population could reach as much as 10 billion. So with a 20% jump in population growth, you can imagine that water consumption is going to be even worse. So if we're already struggling to supply it, increasing our population by another 2 billion people is only going to cause problems. So population causes an increased need for water consumption, not only to support life by having water available for us to drink, but it also just the basic needs to support us in our everyday lives, which in the Western world we're pretty blessed. But things of like showering or washing dishes or washing our clothes, all of those needs that require water. Obviously, with increased population, that increased demand for water is going to have more and more strain on our water supply. So continued increase in population will only cause the percentages to go in the wrong direction. Additionally, with increased population comes increased need for food, and agriculture demand will increase, obviously, as population grows, and the need to provide food will be high. And agriculture already consumes roughly 70% of fresh water globally. So this high percentage of fresh water is needed to grow the food, and obviously with more and more humans, this will become more and more difficult. And with supply and demand and how it works, with with the demand going up and the supply going down, it's going to lead to cost increases. So it's going to drive costs much higher, which eventually will land on the consumer. And sadly enough, we all know that those that are already struggling economically will only see harder times as costs increase. Another major contributor is pollution. So pollution is an ongoing issue globally as well. So wastewater is an issue. With obviously more people comes the need to have more restrooms. With that, as water is flushed, used water, wastewater, it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be treated, it needs to be controlled. And if it's not controlled and it gets circulated back into the population, we're obviously at higher risk of disease and sickness, and potential plague type situations if water was to get out and make people sick. I think a fair assessment or a fair comparison of current states is a country, India, which right now they have an issue with their water supplies, and it is causing issues in their country. So India's known for having very polluted rivers, which is causing significant environmental issues. So one example here is the Ganga. Once was deemed a clean river, has now been deemed unfit, and its pollution has reached the groundwater. So not only is the river itself polluted to a place where it's unfit and potentially sick, make people sick, but also it's gotten to the groundwater, so it's now spreading. The Coombe River is labeled the most polluted river in India due to untreated sewage and industrial pollution. Now, this country has gone into efforts to restore these rivers. However, they, as of today, still remain critical, and there's a lot of information on the internet about what they're doing and how critical these water resources are to those people, because they live off these rivers. They bathe in them. They clean their food in them. It provides their drinking water, and they're at levels that are so polluted that it's unsafe. So it's a very big problem for them. So what are some consequences of water scarcity? So economically, water scarcity threatens billions, if not trillions in dollars. And you say, why? Well, with the lack of water, there's obviously a lack of agricultural production. There's a lack of manufacturing production. There's a lack of energy production. And all of these losses between these different industries adding up impacts business loss, which obviously circles back around to economic growth. Therefore, there's a lot of money that's being lost because they don't have the ability to maintain their processes. And oddly enough, socially, water collection, which we take for granted in the States, when we need to access water, we're able to simply turn on a faucet and water supply is there. We're very blessed in that regards, but in underdeveloped countries, water collection is done by hard work. So children and adults spend countless hours, if not billions of hours annually collecting water. Why is this a problem? Well, this reduces time for children to be in school. It reduces time for adults to be at work, which obviously impacts education. It obviously impacts productivity, and it all circles back around to having an economic impact, as their opportunity to develop is impacted and limited. And then sadly enough, war. So war can, countries fight over available resources, and when countries are trying to survive, conflict is inevitable as people try to control what small resources they have available. And something as precious as water obviously creates competition to have control of that resource. And then environmental impacts. Rivers and wetlands are drying up, biodiversity is being impacted, and ecosystems are being lost. So what are some professional solutions that are currently underway to help resolve some of these issues? Well, there is a process called desalination, and this is the process of turning salt water into fresh water. So while these processes are expensive, they're necessary, and I think we as a country need to continue to invest to help drive down the cost of these technologies to help improve our ability to turn salt water into fresh water. We're smart people. We're innovative people, and I'm sure if we were able to spend more time and put more money into this, we would improve on some of these processes. And what are some of these processes? So one is called reverse osmosis. This is a process of using a membrane, basically a filter, to remove salt and impurities from seawater, allowing only fresh water to come through. So filtering out the salt and the impurities to create the fresh water. Another process is called distillation, which is, in short, boiling water. So you boil water, the steam rises, it separates from the salt, and then you condense the steam back into a liquid form, and then hence you have fresh water. And then there's also a process called electrodialysis, and this technique uses electrical currents to drive ions through selective ion exchange membranes. So another filtering process, which then separates salt and impurities from the water. So 3 different processes that are currently being used by professionals that we could enhance and grow to help restore fresh water. Professionals are also managing aquifer recharge efforts by using techniques such as surface spreading and induced recharge to help restore groundwater levels. So as we deplete our groundwater, there's companies out there that are finding ways to help recharge those groundwater supply faster than they can naturally redo it themselves. And then there's other things that are happening with professionals where they're going out and restoring wetlands or green infrastructure that is being introduced and grown in cities. You hear about having green roofs and things of that nature, which is a way to help reuse stormwater. And then there's also efforts being made by lobbying, right? So policy and governance, as we bring more and more light to this problem and push our elected officials to bring awareness to it and help influence the ability to change it. And then lastly, there's the use of AI. While AI is still very much in a developmental phase, it's being used to help drive leak detection, reduce wastefulness of water usage, and find ways to optimize water use. Now, again, as AI is still very new, we're introducing it more and more, and it'll get better with time. So what are some out-of-the-box solutions to all of these problems? So I read a story about Dubai had a problem where they actually created a flood, but it was a process called cloud seeding, and this is where they were putting stuff into the atmosphere in order to induce rain. It worked, but it didn't go as planned. But I think this is something that we could utilize, especially in areas that are prone to droughts. If we could learn how to better control this could be something that could have a significant impact on our ability to create more fresh water. I think another thing we can do is incentivize industry. So I'm in manufacturing, and we use ISO, so international standard, that's recognized. And what it forces you to do is take a look at your processes and ensure that you're utilizing your resources to the best of your ability, and that you're tracking it, and that you're monitoring it, and that you're having action items that come up in order to improve on it. We do it for, we do it for our carbon footprint, for environmental ISO 14001, and I don't see why we couldn't use something like that to improve how we're using our water. Another thing we can greatly improve on is how we collect water. So as out of the box, this one might sound, why not standardize water collection tanks for suburban homes, apartments, downtown living, etc.? My uncle lives out in Oklahoma, and he has 4 20,000 gallon tanks that he lives off of, where he collects rainwater, he filters it, he cleans it, and then he reuses it for his home. I think we could capitalize on that. I think we've got a lot of smart people that can put together some sort of water collection system in suburban areas that could maximize this type of technology. I don't have the answer, but I think it's a great thing to look at, and just find a way to be more useful of water that's available to us, instead of just pulling on the water supply that's running out. Excuse me. And then a bonus for this one too, you think if you were able to go back and redo infrastructure buildings in suburban areas, it could greatly improve the opportunity to create jobs, and then share this information with other countries, and collaborate on ways to kind of use this worldwide. And then that's kind of my last point, is to share technology. We're pretty blessed in our part of the world, where our technology that we do have helps keep us safe, and I don't understand how we can't help other countries do the same thing and come together and collaborate together to provide clean water to underdeveloped countries. I know possibly redirecting money from budgets, which should be difficult, but I think water is something that everybody deserves to have. And I think we need to find ways to improve on providing it to everybody. So that wraps up my topic of water scarcity. I hope you enjoyed my views and my thoughts. And I hope that we can find a way to drastically improve the situation before it becomes something much worse. Water is a great need to support life. We have to have it, and we should be doing all we can to ensure that everybody has this basic life need. While I know that interaction between countries is not simple, I think that this is an effort that we should put our differences aside and work together to ensure that everybody has fresh water available to them at all times. Okay? All right. Well, thank you, and have a blessed day.